Greetings. This is Arvette McLean of Speak, the Universe Listens.
We cherish that. We love that particular piece of it because
teach people like, hey, it's okay, change.
New ways to view age-old challenges. Change your thoughts, change your life. Step into the bigness of you. Greetings and welcome to today's episode of Speak, the Universe Listens. And today's topic is successfully negotiating romantic relationships. And I have Stephen joining me,
hey.
Rodney,
Hey.
and Teron.
Hey.
So this should be fun.
Yeah.
we're gonna have to let you lead.
Yeah, so I don't even know where to start with this, but relationships, of course, is one of those things that we go have hills and valleys and twists and turns and trying to figure out how to deal with other people. And all relationships are a reflection of ourselves. And so romantic relationships, that's going to be the biggest reflection of yourself, the person that you're probably kind of like the closest to. They're going to really be to reflect yourself back to you. And so a lot of times we're looking at relationships as something out there, that's another person, this is how this person is acting, yada, yada, yada. And so we move from that point. So I guess let's just open the floor to like relationship woes that you may have heard of or that you may have experienced.
Hey, go ahead.
You start the trouble.
I would say for me it's control. That's something that I ran into in relationships, and it's like I think it's one person that wants to control everything. So then it's like the other person is like, well, look, why everything gotta be your way for? You know what I'm saying? Your way don't work all the time. So trying to negotiate around that, basically, hey, trying to get the other person to loosen up on the control and allow somebody else to put some input in, because I think that can cause a lot of conflict sometimes.
I say lack of trust. I think is always a big one. It's often you find yourself maybe not trusting the person not trusting you as much.
Right.
So that's always a big woe.
I think something that can be difficult is simply the blending of the two worlds. So it's like, this the way my life's set up over here, and yours set up like this, and we gotta come in the middle to try to make this work for both of our lives.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the challenges.
Yeah, all those are like for real challenges that everybody kind of comes up against at some point in their relationship. So if I say all of that is a reflection of yourself, like whatever you're perceiving to be the other person, it's a reflection of you. So can you think of possible ways that is a reflection back on you?
Yeah. Yeah, I can. I mean, I said control. For me, I like to be in control of my life. So by me just recognizing that and being aware of like, okay, I like to control every aspect of my life, but because I like to know what's going on. I don't want nobody to be in charge of me. So now when you're in a situation as to where it's like one party wants to be in control, it's like, I'm getting that right back. You know, like now I don't like it as much when it's reflected back to me. So that's something that when you recognize it, I think for anybody, when they're aware of what's being reflected back to them, can you sit back and can you negotiate that? Is that something that's negotiable? You know, if you think so, then hey, put it on the table.
And I'm gonna wait. I want to respond, but I'm gonna wait.
Okay.
For everybody to say it.
I can give an example of something reflecting back to me. Like in the previous relationship before, she told me that, her relationships with her other close people got thin because of her relationship with me. And I'm like, well, what I got to do with that? I ain't tell you stop hanging with them or, stop going there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But then I thought about it. I might not have said that, but what environment am I creating? Or how do I feel about having all the attention from you? Or, always want your attention? Yeah. Like, that may be something I'm putting off that's making you feel like you got to be 100% me or something. Right. And that could be, and I could be feeling like that because maybe my past, my childhood with my mom or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, the lack of trust, that's easy. I'm usually skeptical about most people.
Right.
Like, I know why it would be reflected because I probably don't trust you that much.
That's simple.
You did look at that.
I was the one that asked the question.
No, not you personally, but yeah, so it's probably like a natural skepticism is what's causing that lack of trust and that feeling of lacking trust. It's like, all right, if I were to be more loving and approach this situation in a way where I just release all that judgment from the beginning, then I won't feel like I'm being judged on the back end.
Mm-hmm. So I think you said a key point right there, to release your judgment first. Right. So a lot of times we think we have to fix the other person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so most of the times when you go in that route, you already done made a mistake. Well, mistake is a strong word, but that's really not the bomb. It's to fix them. So if it's a reflection of you, then you would go inward and clean up your own stuff, clean up your vibration. So whenever you start a new relationship, the only thing you can see is all the good stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you're seeing all the good stuff, you're like, happy, like you feel all good on the inside. And sometimes you feel like, okay, now I can go run a marathon, or now I can start that bit. Like you have this new energy of what I can now do. But it's because of how good you're feeling in this relationship with this person, right? And so that person is, that good stuff that you're feeling, that person is reflecting you to you. And so that's what helps you get aligned with your higher self. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So over time, you start seeing other aspects of you, and then you start becoming less aligned with yourself, and those things start feeling bad.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what you want to do is stay aligned with yourself. So whatever things you can do to align yourself, be steady with yourself, feel good in yourself, fix it in yourself, and then you will attract whatever you want. So if let's just say if I'm a control freak, well, one of the things that I learned, because that's one of the things that I have been in my life as a control freak. But the reason why I was that, and really the reason doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. But the reason that I was that is because I was very insecure and didn't feel like I could be okay unless I could control every single thing in my environment.
Right.
So if I'm feeling insecure, like unless I can do this stuff, then that means I'm not aligned with my higher self. Mm-hmm. So I have to become aligned where I realize that I'm safe no matter where I go. Mm-hmm. I can be who I want to be no matter where I go, etc. So once I clear that up in my own vibration, then I'm no longer attracting people who will reflect to me this whole issue of control. Does that make sense?
Shit, it's good. Yeah. But I said also too, like what you just saying, like with control wise, it took a while for me to just sort of like stop and pause and be like, you know what? If I'm aware of my control issues, you know, then I can see within the other person why. If I can see in the other person that they're being controlling, then it's like, okay. What you just said, I had to go through that process of like, all right, so let me release being controlling and just flow. And if I do that, then the other person will vibrate on my energy.
So sometimes we can change a behavior, but not change a thought. So you might say, okay, well, I'm going to just stop trying to control stuff, but you still feeling insecure. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say insecure. You could have control issues for different reasons, right? But if you're still feeling that thing on the inside, you're still going to attract it. That person's still going to reflect that back to you. Mm-hmm. So you really have to clear up your vibration, like really step into your own power, become sure of who you are. And so even though we think of relationships as partnerships, and indeed they are, because relationships push you to be your best self. And to the degree that you can become your best self is to the degree that this relationship will blossom. And even if that relationship doesn't blossom, that person has still helped you take steps to become your best self. And so now you've learned this set of stuff, and then you move to the next relationship and you'll learn some more stuff. But the more secure you become in terms of, you know, like I said, being aligned with your spirit, being aligned with your higher self, the more you realize you are connected to the source of all that is, that you are just love in itself, you are abundance in itself, you are everything that you want to be itself. The more you start to realize that, that's what you will attract outside of you.
I think that goes into as well, like when we talk about negotiating, a lot of times in a romantic relationship, it's like a negotiation for happiness in a sense. When it's like, you know, what can you do to make me happy? Or what can I do to make you happy? When really is, I got to be happy within myself. You got to be happy within yourself, and then we can be happy together. You know, so I think a lot of times we get caught up in that negotiation for happiness, and what can you do better? And then I think that leads into judgment as well, because I'm looking at what you can do better to make me feel a little better. You know, when really I need to look inside to make me feel better.
Exactly.
I don't know, I was sitting there thinking, I think we say the solution to our problems, but we say it as a conclusion. So when I think about relationships, one of the like things that we always hear, like the cliche is, it's not you, it's me. Well, yes, that's true, but not at the end. Like, it's not you, it's me, meaning it's me that I have this issue with, so let me go inside and fix this, not I need to break over to you because it's not you, it's me. It's like it's me. So I'm the issue, but I am the reflection that I'm seeing that I don't enjoy. So I want to go inside and repair that, and then it can be me.
Right. Because every single person is a whole lot of things.
Right.
A whole lot of things. So we'll be like, well, that person is, you know, controlling, or that person is a cheater, or that person is abusive, or whatever. But that person is a whole lot of things. So what you'll see, what's going to be reflected back to you, what's going to be the biggest thing to you is the thing that's the biggest thing to you. And so when you start being something different, then that person, and it may not be that person may fade out, right? Because like attracts like. So you're only going to attract somebody that's vibrating like you. So when you start vibrating differently, that person will start vibrating differently. And if that person is really in a place where they can't, at this time, vibrate differently, they'll fade out. but then you attract someone else that's now vibrating like you.
That makes me think of, you know how people, I don't want to say just women, because men do too, but you know how people be like, they ain't act like that with me. They won't do all that. You know? Like, that makes sense why they, you know, y'all won't vibrating at the same, you know, way. Let me ask y'all a question though. Do y'all think that someone, let's just use happiness, someone that's not happy, are they able to find, like, because we all said, you know, happiness comes from within first. Do you think they can be in a relationship and find the happiness within at the same time?
Absolutely.
I think so.
I think so. Because if they happy, if they find happiness within themselves, if they're in that process of doing so and they're in a relationship, then that person that they're in a relationship with, it probably motivating them to start loving themselves. You know what I'm saying? A little bit more.
But a lot of times, I feel like sometimes when somebody's trying to work on themselves, but with somebody else, I think that can become difficult sometimes.
I think it all depends on what you're actually working on, because I think a lot of times when you hear that phrase, they say I'm working on myself, but they're trying to like keep that, but they ain't really working on themselves. They're still trying to work on the idea of that unity between y'all, so the work isn't really being done.
That's what I'm saying.
But at the same time, if we just said that the person you're in a relationship with is a reflection of you, and it's the biggest, like, what you see is the biggest part of you, what like is what's biggest to you, then if I'm finding my happiness in you, then I'm finding my happiness in myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. But it's okay. I'm sure everybody else did. But you know, that happens all the time. Like kind of like what Steven said. Like if I'm working on myself, right, and I'm like beaming happiness, then I'm going to trigger in the next person that energy. Like they're going to feel it, they're going to see it, and they're going to be like, oh, I want some of that. You know, and if, like I said, if they don't want it, they may not want it. They will fade out for whatever reason. And, you know, you guys will decide to go your separate ways. But if they want it, then they'll start vibrating like that, and they'll start vibrating like you, and that happiness thing will, you know, be a part of their vibration.
I'm trying to think like with a relationship. So like say what you just said, right? Working on yourself. So like let's say what's something that you can possibly do just to get out the space of not get out the space, but what can you do to open yourself up to a relationship? In other words, not coming from the same place of where you came from before and bringing that into the new relationship. What you think?
You asking me?
I'm asking the question.
I think you just got to start with being open to being uncomfortable or open to something different, basically. Because if you got out of a relationship and then you've been by yourself for X amount of years, a long time at this point, and you comfortable with that, with being by yourself, you comfortable with being on your own time and things like that. So I think you gotta, not necessarily become uncomfortable, but be open to finding love if you want that.
And I might have misunderstood the question, but as I understood the question, my answer would be what Teron just said about releasing judgment. So that's what we're doing in our relationships whenever we're like, you're the problem, or if I like everything about you except for this. If you can get this part right.
I
but
gotta have it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
But we're in judgment of them and not realizing that whatever it is, it's reflecting back to us. And like a lot of people would say, well, you know, that person is abusive or that person is mean, and everybody will tell you that that person is a mean person. It's not me, it's that person. Right. Okay, but why did you attract that person to you? Why is that
Right.
person your mate? And a lot of times, like, let's say if people who are feeling unworthy, so if I feel unworthy and I get into a relationship with someone else who feels unworthy, we may show it in different ways. So he may show it like, okay, if I beat you down, that'll make me feel bigger. Wherein I might show it like, oh, like, okay, anything you said, you know, like, so it may be showing up differently, but we're vibrating the same or very similarly.
That's great stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking now, like, that sort of, because for me, I had, it was hard to try to, it still is a challenge for myself, trying to open up, you know, and allow people to come in my world a little bit, you know, especially in the, being in a relationship, you know, having to understand how, you know, hey, what you were saying earlier, you come from two different worlds, and then you got to make them come all together as one. So you're gonna have some conflict, and you know you're gonna have your little ups and downs here and there, but finding that median right there as to where you guys can sort of just be like, okay, there ain't gonna be no conflict. You understand each other, if I'm making any sense.
Right. So that makes perfect sense, and I could go on a whole soliloquy about that in itself, right? From the old consciousness, right? And I hate to call it the old consciousness, but what I'll say is how we've grown up. Like, let's just say Dr. Phil, everybody pretty much know Dr. Phil, right? So the way Dr. Phil would deal with that, I could deal with that all day long, right? But that's not how, that's kind of like not what we're talking about here on this platform. Right. So really recognizing that you are the creator. You are creating whatever you see in front of you. And we want to keep putting it on the other person. We want to put it on our environment and who's doing what and what the government is doing and what happened on TV and what he did over there. But it's you. It's all you. And so the more we can own that power of, okay, I'm seeing through my eyes. I'm not seeing through anybody else's eyes but my own. And everybody who surrounds you would probably say, yeah, that's how I see it too, because you're attracting those people as well. And you can go to a whole, and I was kind of trying to hit on this a little bit in an earlier podcast, but it's kind of like, let's say if you're an African American, you may, mostly every single African American you know might think a certain thing. But then you might have a segment that thinks something totally different and don't see anything that you're seeing. And it's the same with anything. Like if you're a small business owner, you'd be like, well, these are the ills of a small business owner.
Right.
All of y'all think that. And you'll say, we all think that.
Right.
Or whatever, but that's why y'all are all small business owners, because that's what y'all all think, or whatever the case may be. And you'll say, well, this is just how it is. This is how women are treated. That's just how it is. But there are plenty of women who wouldn't agree with that.
Right.
I finally get that too. Thank you. But yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Though it's like you are like, you're gonna, everybody else with you is gonna agree with what you're seeing, because that's who you're surrounding yourself with. Like, you are who are you. The people you're selecting to be around are you. So everybody's just a reflection of you. So you're getting all those vibrations that you want to keep giving out. So when you change what you want to give out, then the people around you change, and then everybody's viewpoint changes, and now you're seeing that random blow of a world that you never saw before.
Right. So anybody want to do a summary?
I think you summed it up well. don't know why y'all looking at me.
I mean, for the biggest thing that I got out of our conversation was the judgment part.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Basically, if you in a relationship, don't pass judgment on the other person. Keep your mind open to be able to receive, and then not only just that, but also keeping in mind of what you feel on the inside is going to be the reflection of what's what's on the outside. So that person is reflecting that back to you. So are you vibrating high or at your low state?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree. I think also it's like you get out what you put in. So if you're getting negativity back, then 9 times out of 10 you're coming from a place where you're not filled up with the most loving energy at that moment. So if you want to feel like the love in the relationship, put the love out in the relationship.
I would say the biggest thing I got was that relationships are all mirrors. It's just a mirror.
Yeah.
It's just a big mirror looking dead at yourself, and as far as happiness, I would say it shouldn't be a negotiation with happiness. I think you should be happy within yourself first.
Right.
So when you say it shouldn't be a negotiation, what do you mean?
What I mean by that is you shouldn't be looking for things outside of you to change or, for you to be happy. Like, this shouldn't be different or this shouldn't be different or I shouldn't have to negotiate what this or that is for me to be happy.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope we touched on something that everyone can chew on, because it really is a different way of looking at relationships, because we are so used to trying to fix the other person. But if you can go back to when you first met that person, what did you see and how did you feel, remembering those feelings, and then try to get into a habit of feeling those feelings instead of looking for everything that's wrong and then harping on that. Just feel the feelings that feel good, because that too is a reflection of you, right? So if you look at all the stuff that you love about them already, that's a reflection of you. And stay there. That's when you're aligned to yourself, and you want to stay in that alignment as much and as often as possible. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to chatting with you again next week. Until then, this is Arvette.
That's Steve.
Rodney.
And Teron.
Bye.